Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact, and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact. And I'm also so proud to be the executive chair of Billion Strong. And as you also know, I really like to find the people that are doing the coolest work in the world and really making a difference for us and giving us hope. And we are very big supporters of a lot of groups. And one of the groups is WITI, Women in Technology Industry. And they were doing a panel on sustainability. And Dr. Lamondre Pugh was asked to be the moderator for it. And he met Okezue on there. And he started telling me about him. And I was like, what? Because this young man was still in middle school, but he was talking about some of the biggest global problems in the world. And so I have just been so fascinated with this amazing young man. But at the same time, as y'all know, I've been walking a very sad loss with my husband. And so my brain's a little confused appropriately as I walk this grief process. And Okezue has been very patient with me, but I can't wait for y'all to meet him. I can't wait. And I want to say, please listen to him. Please listen to what he's doing. Understand, let's say a few things. He does not have lived experiences with disabilities. He is a young researcher, scientist, becoming an engineer, an entrepreneur that cares about all people. And that means he wants to make a difference also for our community, which is why I recognized him. But he started this in middle school. And so I want y'all to just really learn about this young man because I think he's our future. And so let him talk. Okezue Bell, welcome to the program. I know you told me before that is a Nigerian name. And I was just wondering, because you are living in the United States, if you would just talk to us first about who you are, maybe a little bit about your parents. But I'm just so impressed with you. So I first of all say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Okezue, as she said. I'm 15 right now. And I currently live in Pennsylvania in the US, so like in the New England area. Pretty cold. The weather's super volatile right now, but I'm just fortunate to be able to live somewhere where I do have access to like internet and technology, which has become a huge part of my life. So right now I'm a junior in high school, but outside of going to school and being in school, I really do enjoy research, science, and technology. So I took advantage of kind of this whole digital kind of interactions that we've been having with COVID and managed to start working with labs and institutions such as Harvard Medical School and the MIT Media Lab. And there I'm getting to do things like neuroengineering research, which is essentially looking at different ways we can interface with the brain or see how the brain responds to a variety of stimuli. So I'm working on a couple of different projects there. And at Harvard Medical School specifically, I'm learning a lot of the tools and techniques needed to effectively measure brain signals, et cetera. And so as an adjacent to that work, I've been developing a prosthetic because I started to realize that there's this huge need to develop tools that aren't just necessarily mechanical apparatuses, but can actually be viable replacements for individuals with disabilities. I personally don't have a disability, but just seeing how many people across the world need this type of access, especially in places like the United States, where they're always touted as these like first world countries, but we still have so many underlying problems. And so I was like, I want to develop a solution. I actually started off in sustainability. As you had mentioned, I was on the sustainability panel with Witty, and I had been doing a lot of research into developing sustainable goods. So looking at different ways we can make things like meat and dairy more sustainable. Most notably, I joined Perfect Day's Sustainability Health and Advisory Council, where I was advising alongside people like Mary Shellman and Leonardo DiCaprio. Super crazy experience for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
And you're
no problem.
15? What?
Yeah, it was a very exciting time.
Who are you? Who are you? I am so excited you're here.
Thank
Yay!
you. Yeah, it was honestly just a super exciting time. I later founded their Gen Z Council, so bringing youth into the conversation, which I think is just so vital in so many different spaces of technology. And so ultimately, including all of my research, et cetera, I've been a huge advocate for just diversity and inclusion, not only for people with disabilities, but also for people of marginalized backgrounds. I'm a person of color, I'm Black, I'm a male. And so in the United States, we've been facing a lot of adversity and social justice problems, not only for integrating technology that would support people with disabilities, but just integrating technology that's equitable and fair to all. And so I think that also ties into my background just generally. My mom is Nigerian. My dad is also obviously a person of color, all melanated in my family. And my mom immigrated from Nigeria to the US to study engineering. And she was just talking about being a woman in STEM and also being Black, how much adversity she had been facing. And my dad included in that as well. So just taking both of their walks into consideration, I wanted to do my part in helping out. And so I've just been working on a variety of projects, and I've been lucky enough to get picked up by these amazing institutions and amazing people like you and like this podcast, and just getting to learn, and been seeking funding, been seeking new opportunities to share my story globally. So especially with like governmental organizations. And so I've been working with a variety of companies and also been pursuing new avenues for funding and also speaking opportunities. So that way I can really share this vital message and also hopefully inspire youth, which I've been hosting workshops and things and been able to talk to thousands of young people.
Okay, I'm I'm a little bit confused. I thought you were in school all day. Right? I thought you were in middle school and then high school. I'm just so impressed with you because when I was young, I was always told to shut up and sit down and let the adult. We were told that. And I am blessed now that I look younger than I do. I didn't appreciate it when I was young. I wanted to look older so people would take me seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look around, people like you, people like Greta Thornton, I think, or Thornburg, and I think, I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. But what I know I need to do, and I really hope my listeners will really think about this. What do we do to get behind him? As he said, he needs funding. And I agree with you. The youth need to be heard. And I want to say also that we are absolutely thrilled that he joined the Global Leader Youth Group at Billion Strong. We are thrilled. Look at this amazing genius that wants to make the world a better place for all of us. And the walk that his parents and his siblings have had to take just because of the color of their skin. Think about his mother, Black woman from Nigeria, coming out. I can't imagine what she went through and what she continues to go through. And I know that because a lot of my friends with darker skin than me are going through things that I just had no idea how much harder it was to be a dark-skinned person in the world than it is to be a white person. And maybe, as people say, I have privilege, but I agree with you. We all have privilege. But at the same time, I think the days of thinking that the United States is a developed country, we're so much better than everybody else, is ridiculous. Okay. Instead, what do we do? How do we come together? Can you also tell us what your name means? Because I know you told me off air, and I just love what your name stands for.
Yeah, for sure. As you had mentioned, I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and a lot of times siblings or just children in general, especially by their parents, are considered like gifts. And so in Igbo, which is a Nigerian or an indigenous West African language, so it's from Nigeria, from one of the native ethnic groups of Nigeria, who are also called the Igbo people. But in Igbo, it means all God's gifts are complete, because I'm the last child, the last gift. So it's a very nice kind of thing to have, I think it's always something special when names mean something, because every time someone's saying your name, they're essentially like declaring that meaning in your life, which I think is really powerful.
I think so too. What I don't understand, and I imagine a lot of the audience isn't going to understand, is why aren't you just going to school like everybody else? Because you aren't. You are actually saying, wait a minute, is anybody working on saving the world? Anybody care that we're on this planet that's alive and it should be sustainable? Why? Tell me why you even thought you could do this. Why did you even think you could do what you've accomplished? And I have pages of stuff he's done. Neurorobotic systems engineer, founder and director, genetics research student, cell biology intern. I'm sorry, and you're 15. I know I'm a little thick these days, but wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just so impressed with you. So
no problem.
How does that happen? And are you seeing other young people that are doing what you're doing? And bottom line, how do we help you continue to advance what you're doing?
Yeah, I think the impetus behind why I've gotten into so many different spaces and really just tried my best is because I think school is vital, because it provides the fundamental background and understanding that you need to get into these fields. But in my opinion, what use is learning so much if you're not going to apply it somehow? And I think ultimately it's all about just finding your passion and finding where you're interested. For example, I've always been someone who's, I don't know, like a try hard in school. So I've always tried to like take really hard classes and advance in math and triple advance in math and biology and all of this stuff. And so in learning all of these classes, you start to find all of these different fields, and then you start to find what these different fields can do. And ultimately, I think your curiosity leads you. And the only reason why thousands and millions of other kids aren't able to, or not necessarily even able to, just aren't doing the exact same thing is because sometimes your curiosity is stifled by the barriers that society puts around you. And so I think like the biggest thing that young people can do is really try to break past that. And I think the reason why I've been successful in doing that and why other kids have been successful too, so many like youth influencers and youth developers today, and I have a whole network of kids who are working on awesome things, is because we've just refused to be put down by societal norms. And additionally, we have support systems that are there to help us. And I think if we find that more and more people are letting go of this like antiquated belief that youth shouldn't be making an impact, youth shouldn't be working on things. I do agree there are some extents where it's better for an adult to be involved in X circumstance. I think ultimately youth have a really important perspective to share, in that we have the moral high ground, in the sense that all these problems that we're facing in the future are going to be a lot worse, even though we, our generation, didn't necessarily create them. So if we're going to be a part of building the solution, we have to be here at the forefront of the fight of the technology now. And so in doing that, I think it's really important that adults, supervisors, mentors become more open to inviting young people into these spaces. And I think young people also have this kind of innate capacity for learning like a sponge, which is something that I think you see less and less of as you get older, just naturally. And so we can pick up so many different topics and grab onto so many different things. And a lot of these fields are very multidisciplinary. So it's vital that youth are involved, because I think our mindset, our disposition, and just being young and energized in general, it just proves really beneficial, especially in humanitarian efforts or even in like entrepreneurship efforts.
I agree so very much with you. And I remember just really resenting as a young person for so many years, probably till I was in my 40s, that people would not take me seriously because I thought I did have things to add. And so one thing that I have to do as an elder is I have to make sure you have your path cleared. And I'm not the only person that's stepping up to help your brilliance, but it takes people like me making sure that he has a place at the table. And we see the UN getting involved. We see corporations want to get the youth involved, but it's still not really happening. I'm fascinated with the group that you know of the young people that are making a difference. I'm going to talk to you about that off air, because I think adults, and we'll just use those words now, I think adults really need to understand. It appears to me, and I'm going to get spiritual, but I believe that the younger people are being born with more because you got a lot of work to do and a lot of problems to fix. And by the way, I know my generation, the baby boomers, were blamed for all the stuff. As you also, there's a lot of stuff. I never owned slaves, for example, even though I'm white. And so there's a lot that was just baked into it. And I remember the whole time I would think, this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it like this? Now, I'll give you an example. When I was 19, I got a job at AT&T. And AT&T, of course, is still around, but that was the time before it was split up. All the bells got split up from it, blah, blah. I got this job. They paid me really well at 19. But what I noticed was in this particular job, everybody hated it. They hated this job. And by the way, I didn't really like it either because it just didn't work with my personality. And I was thinking, well, I know I'm dumb because I'm 19, because they always told us we're dumb because you're kids, but I didn't understand why they would work at a place that they hated. And then what I noticed was they started getting mortgages and car payments and all, and then they were forced to stay at a job they hated. So I quit and I went and became a waitress because I like people, and people thought I was just stupid, but I've always not understood why the world works the stupid way it works. So I believe my job and other people's job is to make sure you have a voice and a seat at the table. And I will say often that I need to give you my seat. And people are like, no, just pull up another chair. It never happens that way. I need to give you the mic, which is of course what I'm doing. But I am so impressed with you. I'm so impressed with the work you're doing, but let's dig in a little bit. And I know you gave me some questions, but it was a long time ago. And I want to make sure, because your work continues, but you talk a lot about digital transformation. So why don't we talk about what you're doing with digital transformation as a way, because he's just doing so much. I'm hoping he'll come back on regularly and keep us updated on what he's doing. But I also think we need to get behind him and other young leaders like him and put them on the global stage. Once again, he's been on the global stage. That's how I found him. But what can we do to make sure he has everything he needs to help us change the world? And that, I think, and then once again, take him and multiply it out by millions of other brilliant young people that can help if they're given away to help. And by the way, they're going to help even if we don't give them away. They're just going to go around. So don't think they're waiting for us to invite them to the table. They're not. And is that true?
Yeah,
that's true.
For sure. I think so. On the digital transformation aspect, that's essentially just integrating technology into a lot of different areas of business. And the work I've been doing there is just an extension of all of the projects that I've been working on, integrating technology equitably, integrating it effectively, especially in things like education and law, so many different areas. I recently joined a youth organization called Justice, where we're working on creating and reducing algorithmic bias in algorithms that would be used in spaces where judgment is required. So in things like criminality and things like just anything in general that requires any sort of phenotypic identifications, where they're looking at your physical features and making sure that the bias is reduced, or sometimes it's just not even used at all because it doesn't have a place in our society. And so things of that nature, working with government, working with people to ensure that we're getting the proper quality of education. I recently emailed, I think my state's state board of education, trying to correspond with them on how we can best situate students to work with technology and also to ensure that they're getting an education that really prepares them for not only higher education, but I keep saying education, but not only like college and university, but also just what is beyond, how to solve problems, etc. So yeah, a lot of these are lofty and difficult goals to achieve.
But we got to try, right? And the reality is education does not prepare us for the workforce. There are some exceptions, but pretty much it doesn't prepare us. And so I totally agree with you. And I think who better to help rethink what we need than people that are actually getting the education. So that's really powerful.
Yeah.
So this is not something I asked you before, but one thing that I find is that there's a lot of efforts with smart cities, for example. We love to say smart cities, smart homes, smart communities. We like to put the word smart in front of it. Yeah. I personally believe that it is not smart if it is not transformative. if it's not inclusive. If you're not, as you're saying, if you're not looking at these things and making sure that you're looking at who is being left out by this. And that happens all the time. We see it's identity is so important, which is why I'm thrilled that you joined Billion Strong. But I know that we're also I'm working with a global group about other identity things. I'm going to bring you into that too, because your voice is needed. Your voice is needed. But I know that you've done some work with HCI, and I wanted you maybe just to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of work with human-computer interaction or human-computer interfaces. It's essentially the underlying field for all of the work I've been doing with the Media Lab. So essentially what HCI is, it's just looking at different ways we can amalgamate the human experience, biology, physiology, et cetera, pretty much anything that's human derived or human used, and then integrate that with technology and interface with the two. So one extension of that is brain-computer interfaces, where you're looking at direct ways where we can read brain signals, understand the brain better, and utilize the brain's mechanisms to control technology. So that's what I've been doing with the prosthetic, for example. I'm using things like muscle and myographical signals, as well as neural signals, to actually better manipulate a prosthetic, very flexible prosthetic, and at a low cost. And then with the MIT Media Lab, what we're doing is we're working on a project it's already on the MIT Media Lab website, so you can look at it more there. But essentially what we're doing is we're creating these sort of simulations of what a human would behave like given a certain environment. So you would essentially be interacting with a digital clone of yourself. And then we would figure out quantitatively how to measure how that affects their behavioral patterns, how that affects kind of their neural patterns, things of that nature. And so the reason why something like this is so important, you might be thinking like, what's the use of generating a digital twin of me if I were in X profession? But the underlying importance of it is that we can better predict and even influence behavioral outcomes in human beings. So we can look at how would understanding, like how you would feel, how you would work in a certain environment, how would understanding that actually inform your future actions. So it would be possible to even get these individuals to better situate themselves. So for example, it's like, if you mentioned your story about the AT&T, right? So imagine if you had already gotten into a simulation where you were working AT&T, you realized you hated it, and you never even did that in the first place. You went and became a bartender. From there, you built your own bar, you did all of this stuff. So it's having that foresight that technology provides us. That's a huge part of human-computer interaction. But there's other things like creating wearable monitors that you can wear on the skin, like technological skin. There's so many crazy things you can do with HCI, which is why I think I'm super invested in a field like it, because it combines my favorite subjects like biology, chemistry, human behavior, and then mixes those human sciences with kind of technology, computer science, coding, and engineering, which I'm a huge proponent of.
You know what? I just wish you'd run for president. But then I also think, don't be mean. I know that you have to be 35, and you always give me so much hope for the future. And that's why we've got to help you. We've got to help you. So I know you have your own website and you have your own newsletter, because I'm a subscriber, but also, and I know we've talked about it a little bit, but how do we really help you more? So I'm going to put some words in your mouth. You've already talked about it, but you would love to be invited into partnerships. You'd love to be invited to speak. You would love to get more involved with UN activities. I think you should be at the World Economic Forum telling us. I will say that, and I've mentioned this on air before, but I had a good friend of mine, and I won't mention her name because she'd kill me, but years ago, she was saying that Greta, she's rude. I don't think I like Greta. And I said, so what do you like about Greta? Because I actually am a huge fan of Greta. And she said, well, she's very rude. She's up there telling the leaders, we'll never forgive you. And I said, put yourself in their position. Nobody will listen to them. We're acting like, oh, go sit down. It's no big deal. And when their earth is on fire, they're really concerned, and we're just blowing them off. Are they supposed to be nice about that? And so when I said that to her, she's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So it seems, since you're going to be stuck with it, and we didn't know. It's interesting. The baby boomers did start breaking society. They started doing their hair different. They started smoking weed. They started taking off, their bras. They were trying to change things. But it was just too big of a change. And then, of course, I think the baby boomers started having children and raising children. We didn't have time to save the world. But I just am so excited about I'm excited about you and your generation, because I believe that you were given the kind of brain and the kind of desire and the purpose in your heart where you really want to have an impact. And I can't imagine what your siblings are going to do and what your parents are doing, but I have a feeling there's a lot of light shining out of your home. But I'm just really impressed with you. And so obviously everybody's seeing that, but also, you asked me, you said I could ask you a question. I'm going to read it. What's your target demographic with Fidutom? I'm saying that word wrong, I'm sure, and why? And can you elaborate on that? Because I love what you're doing with this too.
Yeah. So Fidutom, it's Fidutom, but no problem on that then.
I'm bad with pronunciation.
Yeah, it's no problem. It looks like it could be said a variety of ways. So
thank you for being kind to the old lady. You
Yeah, so Fidutom is a startup project I've been working on with a couple of other youth to essentially bring decentralized finance to unbanked and underbanked communities. So allowing these individuals who are primarily individuals of color in underfinanced areas to actually get bank accounts, because the stats show that not only the stats, but just personal interactions and seeing other people across different communities, you find that there's so many different people who actually don't have access to these like essential financial tools, and also can't set themselves up for economic posterity because they don't have bank accounts. So if we're able to provide them with bank accounts, a lot of the barriers to entry can be things like requiring state issued IDs in English, which effectively bars a lot of immigrants, a lot of variety, forcing them to put minimum deposits to get a bank account, or the cost to maintain a bank account can be difficult for people who are impoverished. So with the latest developments in things like blockchain technology and just the decentralized autonomous organizations, what we can do is we can actually decrease the cost of facilitating financial transactions, which is great. So that's what we've been working on building at Fidutom. And we've been just talking to a variety of like top banking institutions and credit institutions, looking at different ways we can implement this. So my target demographic is mainly like people of color, people in marginalized communities, people in underserved communities, both medically and financially, because a lot of medically underserved communities, it's because they don't have access to things like insurance and stuff like that prevents them from being able to get the right treatment or getting denied by hospitals. So our overall goal is to just increase and better the infrastructure that is present in all of these different areas. So that's what we've been working on with Fidutom. We're currently in this development and funding stage. So we're trying to acquire funding and also acquire different ways of turning this into not only just like a product, but also an initiative where we can just like bring in tons of people to be working on this, but also be advocating for it across like different councils, across the world, really, on different forums and with different organizations.
You just blow me away every time you speak. So I just keep I know that I have a widow fog, but I'm just so impressed with you. And one thing I know I've kept you on longer than I'm supposed to, and please, will you come back on? Will you come back on? I know the show gets booked up real months in advance, but you need to come back. But,
yeah, for sure.
So what do you think? I do want to ask you this one, two more questions. The last one is, how can people find you? But where do you see yourself in 10 years? It's because I go and I think about myself at your age. Yeah, and that's okay. We all grow up when we grow up, but where do you think you're going to be?
I'm like on the fence, because I think on one end, I hope I'll be like maybe some year in grad school, like working to get some advanced degrees, probably like a PhD or an MD PhD, because I think that really sets you up to go into things like academia very well. And it also provides you with like the necessary training to do things like operate with humans, and also sourcing like different types of technology. You get a lot of funding, especially depending on the institution you go to. So I think that first would be just a great milestone, and it'll be a great facilitator, like a starting point for the rest of my life with a degree of that nature, like working towards that. And also just providing me with that experience where you get to interact with a bunch of other people who are super passionate about science. I think that's one of the great things about like pursuing higher education. But outside of that, I hope I will have grown Fidutom. I don't really plan on like stopping any of the things I'm doing, even as I like pursue a degree and go to college and things like that. So hopefully I would have grown my projects. Hopefully my prosthetic will be like somewhere global or being used by people, available to anyone who needs it, really would be very exciting. And I would have developed other projects, worked with tons of people, gotten to speak at different places. I think that's like something that's really important, is that I've just adequately and sufficiently, or rather I could just say adequately, just shared my story to thousands and if not millions of people, to hopefully inspire them to start movements. I think I'm just one person that could serve as a catalyst. So hopefully there'll be, and I know there are tons of other people who are working on amazing and just as amazing things. So I just hope I'll be one of those people to have inspired millions and also still be able to pursue my own passions and my education and things of that nature.
You've already inspired me, and I know a ton of other people. So I'm glad that you are in the world. So tell people about your website. I know you're on social media. Let people know how to contact you. If anyone is interested in supporting this work and you want to just come to me, I will also introduce you to them, but you tell people how to find you.
Yeah, for sure. So my website is just okezuebell.com. So that's OKEZUEBELL.com. But you can also find me on LinkedIn at Okezue Bell. I also have an Instagram, but like it's just a normal Instagram, so I don't really use it for communicating. But you can definitely follow me on Instagram. I do use Instagram sometimes, but I'm most active on LinkedIn. If you ever want to contact me, you can contact me on LinkedIn. Or you can also email me at okezuebell@gmail.com. It's all spelled the exact same way. Or I@okezuebell.com. Both of those are my emails. The I@okezuebell.com, it might take a little bit longer to get a response, but overall, it's just very active on email and very active on LinkedIn. So I'm always ready for new connections and ready to talk to people.
Yes. And LinkedIn, because I was one of the first class of 100 creators, gave me 3 major gifts to give to 3 people. And one of them I gave to Mr. Bell here. So only because as elders, we have to get behind him and really help him be successful. And all of the other young people that are out there that want to make a difference. And he's not waiting for us to give him permission. Yay. He's actually doing it. He's been doing this for years. So it's funny that he's 15. That confuses my brain, but thank you. And please, will you come back on? Because I definitely want to have you back on the show. Okay. Thank you to you. Thank you to Doug Forrest, my beautiful, amazing producer behind the scenes. And people, please consider going to billion-strong.org and donating, because we sure could use that support. And we're very proud that he is part of it. We're just proud of this young man. I know, I have a feeling he'll probably bring home the Nobel Peace Prize one day. So we need to watch him, but we need to help him. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It was great to chat with you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.